This is what we call the shift. The shift is all about moving to a different level of consciousness. When you move from brain-centered 3D to heart-centered 5D, not everyone is going to understand. Not everyone's going to be making the shift at the same time, and sometimes that causes problems. It could be as simple as, I have been an accountant my whole life, and I just don't feel like doing that. I want to open a daycare center. I've been married to this individual for a very long time, but I'm not really as happy as I thought I would be. I need a different life. So there are so many changes going on in the world right now, and a lot of that has to do with this split between those who are moving to a higher level of consciousness and those maybe are just not ready for it yet. My name is Linda Haley. I'm the Executive Director of the Reiki Center in Columbus, Ohio. I was raised in a haunted house, one of those really, really bad ones, not like Casper the Friendly Ghost. And I swore I would never have anything to do that was unseen, that was spiritual, that was scary. And I pretty much stayed true to that for most of my life. And then I'd always been in healthcare, traditional medical care. And when I got sick, I tried the pills, the hospitalization, the surgery, and it made me worse. And I happened to find Reiki, and it made me well. So that's why I wanted to find out more about it. And that's how we happen to be who we are today. I knew about ghosts, but I'd never had an experience with it. And initially it was fun. I mean, you could hear knocks and you saw stuff come up and down off the table and flying across the room. And initially it was more of like a curiosity. And everybody in the family saw it, kids, parents. And then at some point it stopped being fun. And it started to be really scary and involved some touching and bad things in the middle of the night and just, things that you hear about, but you think, oh, you're making it up. No, that stuff's real. And so I thought, I don't want to have anything to do with this. This is too frightening for me. And if anything happened to come into my life that seemed frightening, I would never watch a scary movie, never go to a haunted house, never do anything like that. And so I didn't. And eventually, I didn't have a choice. It came to me. I was pretty effective for a long time in blocking everything. So I left that home after I got out of college. And if anything happened in any home that I was in, I didn't see it. I didn't know about it. I don't want to know about any of that. And then I discovered that sometimes you just don't have a choice. And those were things started to happen to me that just didn't make sense. And people started to talk to me, through the clients. New beings were coming through and they were channeling, and I had to find out what is channeling. And I started seeing things, and I started to become more intuitive, and I started to hear things. And it was frightening at first. People who are starting to open up to this really don't have a lot of benchmarks. There's very little guidebooks that says, and then when you hear something, and we all know that people who say they hear things, there's a misinterpretation. Sometimes they're seen as being, not completely, healthy. So people are afraid to tell, like, I saw something. Really, what'd you see? I can't tell you. And even when you're a child and you're told, don't make up things. But really, I talked to Grandma. She was in my bedroom last night. Honey, she died 2 weeks ago. No, we talked. Honey, do not make up stories. You're lying. It never happened. And that's why so many people have their third eye closed. It's out of fear. And it makes perfect sense, because if you are afraid that you're going to be called crazy, you're making things up, it's safer to just not want to see things. So I don't align with one path. I think that every path has validity, and I enjoy finding out about all of them. But no, I'm not aligned with one particular faith. Well, I thought everything worked together pretty well, until I started to think about going into Catholicism. And I'm in the Catholicism classes because I really am thinking about conversion. And I say to the priest one day, so how do you deal with reincarnation? And he looked at me and said, there is no reincarnation. I said, no, really, there is. So how do you reconcile the fact that, we come back over and over again? And he said, it doesn't happen. And I said, that was the end of me becoming Catholic. And so that's when I started looking around just to find out what is out there that corresponds with my belief system. So that's where I kind of became more open to understanding some of the beliefs of so many different faiths and paths. And I think everything has validity, and you just have to find something that works for you. And obviously, every religion is still going to have some drawbacks of, well, I believe this, but not so sure about that. And that's kind of where I was. It's kind of where I am right now. I still believe in so much. There's a higher power. I believe that there are helpers. I may not put the same names on it as everybody else, but I do have the belief system. I started to have memories that didn't seem to fit in with anything that I understood. And they felt very real, and it really felt like these were memories that were mine. I wasn't imagining about somebody else. And that's when I started to find out that most of the world believes that the soul continues from one experience to another. And the reason for that is to try to learn as much as possible about life on Earth, life on other places. That just seemed to fit in with my belief system. And actually, I think most of the people who are part of this field probably have a very similar belief. If you think about it, the soul is really the only thing that is eternal. Planets can be gone, suns can burn out. The soul is supposed to be the only thing that is fully eternal. So why wouldn't it be coming back over and over again to perfect itself, to get more information? It's a little like Groundhog Day. You keep coming back over and over again till you get all the information you need. You don't have to come back. That's all part of a request, as I understand it. On the other side, that it's like, I'm ready to experience life again. And you don't have to come back to Earth. There are many, many opportunities to find out what life is like in other places of the universe. Some of it you have a physical body. Sometimes you have a body that looks like this, sometimes not. But that's all part of experiencing different opportunities. So do you have to come back? Absolutely no. Sometimes people want to come back because they want to help somebody, or they want to correct something. They want to resolve something that maybe was not resolved at the end of that lifetime. So you actually have an opportunity to do whatever you want if you believe that you can help yourself and others. Many people feel like they want to have the opportunity to be able to resolve something, to maybe look at something that hadn't been completed, to work through a relationship that maybe felt like it was just unfinished. And after you go up to whatever you perceive the other side to be, whether it's heaven, Bardo, the other side, whatever you call it, then you have an opportunity to process your humanity. You release the emotions that you may have gone up with. You release some of the physical issues. And then when you process, it's just a little bit like coming back from a deployment overseas if you're in the military. It takes you a little bit of time to kind of feel like you're ready to come back into society. So when you're ready, you request an opportunity to come down. And as I understand it, it's just a matter of going through the process of requesting and getting approval, and then something has to be set up for you at this side. When I was in my 20s, I had a lot of sleep paralysis. Probably 3 times a week I would wake up in the middle of the night, absolutely wide awake. I knew I was, could not move, and there was somebody at the foot of my bed. And well, that just validated that I should be scared of things like that. And that went on for months. And I couldn't really tell anybody. I mean, this was long before it became more fashionable to talk about all this stuff. Back then, if you talked about that, you were suspect. There was something very wrong with you, because that just didn't happen. But it did happen. The way that I understand it, the way I experienced it, and the way I teach it, is that if you are aware of the energy of something else in the room, if you can even feel sometimes somebody tugging at a blanket or holding onto your foot, I don't think you're alone in the room. I think this is part of an experience that, for whatever reason, another being wants to connect with you. Is it malevolent? I don't know. I never was harmed, but I was very frightened. So that's kind of what I think. I think that it is someone who is, for whatever reason, trying to make a connection with you for whatever purpose. We interpret it as terrifying. I've had a lot of personal experiences with non-human beings, and one of the oddest was that, and I've seen some, but one of the oddest was I was in bed, and I lived in an old house, and I had old skeleton keys for the doors, and I had my door locked. And then all of a sudden, I heard the skeleton key rattling in the door. I'm alone in the house, and the skeleton key keeps rattling in the door. At some point, I fell asleep immediately. Yeah, that doesn't make sense, right? But then the next morning, I wake up and I look down at my upper left arm, and I have 3 orange triangles tattooed right here. And the points all came together, and it was probably 3/4 of an inch, thereabouts, 3 orange triangles. And I thought, I have no idea what that is. And then all of a sudden, it's like everything came back from the night before. That I did have an experience. They did come into my room. Something did happen to me. And since then, I've had flashbacks. And I wish I had taken a photograph of this. I scrubbed it so hard, I scrubbed my skin off. But I have since come to find out, I've heard from other people that they've had orange tattoos on them. So it wasn't just me. There is something about a marker. And the other way of looking at it, many people believe, is those on the other side are trying to keep track of the ones that they believe that they need to protect. So it is not, it's like when we there's implants that can also come into the body, foreign objects that can be implanted in the body. And they could be x-rayed, and they could be taken out with surgery, and they're real. Anyway, so there's a belief that the implants that go in are not to harm us. It's similar to we put chips in dogs. We're tracking whales, eagles, all the other things, and that is not to harm them. It's to protect them. I don't know. There's so much that I would love to find out. We're nowhere near total disclosure, even though there are many people who are arguing that we should start having more information come to us, and the congressional panels and everything that are being put together will give part of the information. There's just so much more. I started to have experiences that I just couldn't understand. I met my husband. We had pretty much one date, got married, because we remembered that we had been together many, many times before. And we remembered those times. And it was like, you want to try it again? Sure. And it's worked out really well. And I started to, get more involved in studying about ESP, about remote viewing, about different healing methods, about UFOs, ETs. And after a while, the fear started to go away. And then I had a health scare. So about 25 years ago, I was very sick. And my background is medicine. I worked in medical facilities for a while. And so my default was to go into pharmaceuticals and hospitalization and surgery, because that was what I knew and what I accepted as the only way to go. And I still was sick afterwards and happened to find natural therapies, tried Reiki. I had never heard of it before, so 20-some years ago, it was not common at all. And I got really concerned because I was feeling like I was floating. I had these weird sensations of energy moving through me. Since I never had heard of it before, I wasn't sure that I liked it. But when I got off the massage table, my pain was gone. And my ophthalmologist told me that my eyes had improved. And I no longer had to take heartburn medicine because I didn't have, any problems anymore. And all these things just seemed to be getting better and better. And so that's when I decided there might be something to this. About 10 years ago, I was working with a client who I knew really well, and he was fairly conservative, and all of a sudden he started talking on the table. Well, that was not typical for him, and I happened to be recording him anyway because he had had some experiences that I said, this is what happened on the table, so I had permission to record him, and on the table he started talking, and what he said was, do not be afraid. I have come to see you. This is Avratar from the 5th dimension, and you have been selected. And I didn't know what to think. I wasn't afraid because I knew the client really well, but that was just odd. And then he started talking more and more, and it was obvious I wasn't talking to my client anymore. And then soon afterwards, all sorts of things started to happen. We started to get messages. We started to communicate with this being more and more. I started to feel like I had a relationship with him. And I still feel like, even 10 years from later, I do feel like I have a relationship with him. And then I started to understand what channeling was. And everything just seemed to open up at that point. So we moved from more therapeutic body work and Reiki and some of the more physical aspects of natural wellness to bringing in more intuitive things and channeling and different spiritual direction and journeys, shamanic work. And I think a lot of people really feel like that's where some of the answers are. They come in, of course, for the therapeutic body work, and we do a great job with reflexology and craniosacral therapy and massage therapy, but they also really want the answers. And that's one of the things that I think we offer, is an opportunity to integrate everything. So we started to get even more involved in connecting to the other side. And that's when I really started to get involved with consciousness is not just on this planet. And this is where connecting to light beings, connecting to other dimensions, it just seems to be an evolution that once you understand how to work with awareness in the 3D plane, again, you want to find out what else is out there. And so we often talk about we're a 3D planet, we're 3D individuals, but we're moving into 5D. Most people don't understand what that is. They think they're going to look different. You're the exact same person, from what other people can tell. You just have a very different emphasis. You're caring about people. You're moving from the brain, which is very money, power, materialism, to the heart. And when you deal with the heart, what you're doing is you are working with compassion, connecting to other people on a very heart-centered way. And most of the people who are moving from 3D to 5D are not sure what's happening to them, because it means that their life is changing. And not only is their life changing, but they're impacting the people they live with, their friends and family, who may or may not be changing. And if you're changing and the people you're close to are not changing, sometimes it doesn't work very well. Now take that on a much larger level. Look at society. So you have people who are working with, compassion and empathy, and you have people who are also very locked in to the same 3D existence. Look how we're seeing so many changes, so much conflict on college campuses, politics, educational centers, commerce. This is what we call the shift. The shift is all about moving to a different level of consciousness. When you move from brain-centered 3D to heart-centered 5D, not everyone is going to understand. Not everyone's going to be making the shift at the same time. And sometimes that causes problems. It could be as simple as, I have been an accountant my whole life, and I just don't feel like doing that. I want to open a daycare center. Okay? I've been married to this individual for a very long time, but I'm not really as happy as I thought I would be. I need a different life. So there are so many changes going on in the world right now, and a lot of that has to do with this split between those who are moving to a higher level of consciousness and those maybe are just not ready for it yet. I think that this is the time that we knew that there would be one of the biggest shifts in the entire evolution of Earth. And no matter what role you play, wherever you live, there are those who said, I just want to be part of it. I just want to be part of this massive transition on Earth. So the belief is that you request coming down, but then you have to also be accepted. So this is the people who are here right now are the ones that can contribute one way or another. And it may not be, screaming from on high on a mountaintop. It could be that it's just you can do something nice for someone else. You can impact somebody else's life in a certain way. It could be that you need to come down to clear up your own karma. Maybe there's so many things in your own life, in your own history, that if it turns out that there's going to be this major shift, you just want to clear up some of the emotional baggage that you've been carrying around with you. I think the West has a huge misperception about what karma is. In the West, we tend to think of karma as punishment. Oh, you got some bad karma. You're going to pay for that. That's not karma at all. Karma is the concept of learning a lesson, of finding balance. So the concept that started in the East is that if there is something that your soul needs to experience, maybe you've hurt somebody, the next time you want to come back to understand, what does it feel like to be hurt? So it doesn't mean that you're being punished by having an experience where you're hurt. Your soul is saying that I really need to experience this. I want to experience everything that goes into being a human. So if I get away with a crime, maybe this time I learn what it feels like to be punished for the crime. Maybe I am the one that was hurt in one lifetime, and this lifetime I'm the abuser. So it is not crime and punishment. It is your soul understanding every single aspect of what it means to be fully human. So the gentleman who is the client came back every week or two for a very long time, a couple years. So I have many, many episodes of connecting with Avratar. And Part of what Avratar selected me for is that my background is as an English teacher and wanted me to write a book. And I was pretty serious saying, I don't want to write a book. And then your second chapter is going to have this and this. I'm not writing a book. I wrote the book. I lost that one. So I wrote the book. And part of the reason that the book had to be written is because he knew that there would be fear during this time period where there would be massive visitations. And he said 10 years ago that you will at some point see our ships all over the world. We're seeing orbs all over the world right now, all over the world. So why are they coming in? And people will often say, are you really excited about all the UFOs? I really don't care about the UFOs. I want to know about the occupants. I want to know, who are you that you have so much interest in us as a people? Well, there's a belief that they are cosmic cousins. They are the ones that helped create Earth. Earth has been called the Great Experiment. They're watching us. They've always watched us. Sometimes it feels like, I don't know, maybe we're like in their zoo. Maybe we're like their science project. Whatever it is, they are definitely watching us, and they've been monitoring us for a very long time. I think they think we need to have a course correction for a lot of reasons. So there are a lot of things we're not doing right. We are destroying the planet. We're destroying the soil, the air, the water. And there is a very deep concern that at some point, this planet may not be habitable. There's a lot of concern that we're putting a lot of emphasis on AI. Yes, there are so many things that are wonderful about it, but when you start giving up the opportunity to be human and moving into creating, a bionic body, to becoming transhumanism, where you are incorporating so much of the robotics into your system that at some point you may not even be human anymore. That's a huge concern too. There's also a belief that many of them are back here now to warn us, to say, at one point, we were exactly where you are right now. We were at the point that we had to decide, do we want to incorporate, robotics and artificial brains so that we could play video games in our mind? And we were toying around with that possibility, and we really were pretty excited about the possibility of doing some pretty amazing things. At that point, we could have said, wait a minute, there's going to be a line that we're going to cross. And we didn't stop. And so part of what I'm being told is that we're one of the few places in the universe that still has emotions. Think about it. If you are bionic, if you're robotic, you don't have emotions. That is what keeps us in the category of being completely human. Once we start giving up the emotions, who are we? Once we give up our soul, then who are we? That's one of the reasons why they're back. They're here. If they wanted to harm us, they had thousands and millions of years that they could have done it. They have come from, in some cases, the other side of the galaxy. They have the technology to do whatever they want to, and yet we're afraid of them. I would love to see what would happen if we could instead embrace the wisdom that they're trying to bring. But there are so many movies out that they try to talk to us, we blow them out of the sky. I don't think that's the direction we should be going. What's interesting is that there are many reports that we have 8 ships that are stored in military bases. There have been congressional hearings where whistleblowers have come out and said that we do have their ships. I don't know how we would have gotten their ships. I don't know if we did cause harm to the ships or if something happened. I don't know. But people who have testified to Congress have said, oh no, we have their ships. We are in third dimension, moving into fifth dimension because you move into your more of a heart-centered awareness. Starting at 6, you start losing the physicality. And then from sixth dimension up, and nobody really knows how many dimensions there are. There's reports of 13, there's reports of much more than that. But when you start moving up to higher dimensions, you don't have the physicality. You are more energy. And at that point, you're often referred to as a light being. Extraterrestrial is anything that does not have a physical body. An angel could be called an extraterrestrial, or Bigfoot could be called an extraterrestrial if you don't believe that they're physical, but they've come in and out of someplace else. So the concept of being without a body is actually more aligned with more the spiritual aspect. We talk to angels. We connect to God, Jesus, Muhammad, King David. At that point, you're working more with the etheric, with the energy of the being when you connect to them. It's interesting. They've actually done studies that they have put people on a special bed, on a special scale that is very, very sensitive. And they've discovered at the moment of death, you actually lose weight. So is there substance to a soul? There are those who think that there is. So where do you go? That's where it starts to get really interesting, because no matter what culture you're in, many people have had a very, very similar experience. Many people have seen loved ones, maybe in their hospital room, and they're talking to their great aunt and having conversations. Maybe they feel like they see a tunnel, or they hear celestial music, or they feel like they're being guided. They normally feel this extreme sense of peace. So if you are not afraid of going back home, you will probably experience it as the most amazing joy you could possibly think of. If you are at the moment of death, and for whatever reason you don't believe that you are worthy to go to wherever you perceive heaven to be, the moment of death, you have a choice to make. And that choice is, do I want to go up there, or do I want to stay down here? So why wouldn't you go up there? You're not good enough. Okay, only saints can go up into heaven. There's something you have to do. What if you have to take care of young children? You're the only one that can do it. I can't leave these children. Maybe as you're passing away, somebody says, don't die, don't leave me. You make the promise, and it's like, well, now I can't leave because I promised. Maybe you have a mental illness, and there's a light coming down. There really is a light, and you don't know what to do with it. Maybe you're depressed, and it's like, they don't want me up there. Only happy people are up there. Okay? Maybe you've just hurt somebody, and you know that, well, they're not going to want bad people up there. Okay, so there's any number of reasons for why you don't want to go up there. It is a choice. Almost everybody remembers. But what if you think they don't want me? Maybe you've been told since you were very young, you're a very evil child, and when you die, God's going to punish you. You see the light, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm going to be thrown into the fires of hell. You make the choice not to go. So what do? There are 3 options. One option is you go back to wherever you feel safe. And it may be that upstairs bedroom that you died in, and that's what we call a ghost. Maybe you don't have a place to go to, and so you wander. And it's just walking around. And that's what we call earthbounds. We have them in here all the time. They're not dangerous. It's like, just thought I'd come in and check you out. Okay, you have to go now. Okay. And then sometimes that soul feels like, I've never really felt like I was safe. That soul can actually merge with us. And that's called an attached spirit or spirit attachment. And it's not a possession, not at all, but it's just a filter that they bring into our bodies. And they bring their fears and their phobias and their preferences and their sleep schedule and everything else. So sometimes people who have wild personality shifts, and they say, but I hear people in here. They do, because they really do have another soul that has also taken up residence. Highly controversial, obviously, but from our experience, we have helped so many people by helping the person inside who's trapped move into the light. And if that person has brought anxiety, fear, phobia, panic attacks, all of a sudden they're gone from the host. All of a sudden they feel better. I mean, obviously there are chemical imbalances, and there's true mental illness, and there's true schizophrenia and depression. So, and I'm not saying in all cases, not at all, but it is one option. I cannot diagnose it all, and nor would I. But if I can work through their energy field and see if there's things that need to be released, then I will do that, and then we'll find out how they feel afterwards. Because only a physician can diagnose, and our only role is to help people feel better. And if we can help them feel better by releasing an emotion, a fear, a phobia, a spirit attachment, then that's what we do. You have an opportunity to move into the light. If for some reason it's like, nah, I don't think so, not right now, and then later you change your mind, just have to find a way to move to the other side. Usually it means getting help. Usually it means people who, through prayer, through calling on archangels, Archangel Michael, working with people who have the ability to be able to do it. People who go into haunted houses and they do ghost hunting, a lot of them will identify and help them move into the light. That's very common. People who are exorcists, that's some of the darker energies. They also help move into the light. I think you would be able to find your own path there. If there is a pathway of light that comes down when somebody has passed away, you could very easily also go into that pathway of light. Most people who are down here are terrified of the light. There's judgment, there's punishment, there's regret, there's isolation because people don't want to be with you. So very few people have this sense, from my experience, that they really want to move to the light. I did have one person when I was working on them. I was doing a Reiki attunement, which helps move somebody from into a practitioner status. I remember I just barely put my hands, and the client and I, the student and I, both heard, "Get me out of here!" And within 5 seconds, we both could tell that something had been released. So, yeah, they do change their minds, but it is still a decision that is primarily theirs. If we are a free will planet, part of that free will is, I don't think I'm going to stay down here. We will often find that there are clients who actually know the beings who are inside of them. It could be that they were with somebody that they cared about at the moment of death, and that soul still wanted to be with them. We have had children who were with the parents. We have had a boyfriend who was with my student who was the girl. And that has happened I saw a nurse once who worked in the neonatal unit of a hospital. She couldn't have children, but I released 7 infants from her because she was just caring. And on a very subconscious level, she just wanted to take care of all the babies. So many people are aware that they have something else. And I think it's too bad that we don't recognize that this is something to be looked at. Sometimes I think that we're not treating the right person. Sometimes, and I understand that people who are working with individuals that are dealing with mental illnesses and depression and other things, it makes perfect sense that in all cases you would always give the antidepressant to your client. But what if the client is not the one who's depressed? What if the soul inside of the client is the one who's depressed? Sometimes I think we treat the wrong person. We've talked about the third dimension and the fifth dimension. The fourth dimension is the dimension of the souls that are perhaps trapped. And it's the dimension that kind of works with the fluidity of time. And are there things that slip in and out of that dimension? Possibly. So this is also well known in shamanism. Shamanism says that you work with altered dimensions. You work with the reality of some of the things that you can't see with your 3D eyes. But if you get to a place of recognizing that there's so much more to this world than what you see with your physical eyes, you can actually move into that space. Some people can do it with deep meditation. Some people do it in dream time. You know, when we dream, we're out of our bodies a good chunk of the time. So if you are able to do it on a more conscious level, this is the foundation of remote viewing, which is what the U.S. government has been doing for a very, very long time. And there are places that do study that. Monroe Institute is very good with things like that. So if you are able to move your consciousness apart from your body, then you are able to go to a variety of scenarios to help people. So it is no different than somebody who does a distant healing session. And there are many paths that will learn how to do distant healing. As Reiki practitioners, we do all the time. You can be in one location and provide support to somebody who is nowhere near you. What you're doing is you're moving your consciousness. Consciousness is huge right now because people are starting to realize that consciousness is a huge part of the human body. I think that you create your reality. That's why many people talk about the power of manifestation, the power of the secret, the power of trying to imagine the life that you want. It's the reason that affirmations are successful. Once you can imagine that you already have that life, you're putting the energy into it, and you see what you want to see. You believe what you want to believe. You know what you want to know. There's a lot more that goes into an affirmation than just having a positive thought. So what I'm finding is that a lot of people who have positive thoughts still are not succeeding. They're still not happy, successful, have abundance in their life. So why is it? So there's a lot that has to happen before you write that Post-it note that says, "Today I'm happy." We have so many subconscious beliefs that actually sabotage ourselves. So you might write, "Today I'm successful. Today I have abundance coming into my life." But if the subconscious belief says, "But I don't really deserve that. Nobody in my family has ever been successful. I always screw up. My big brother, who I adore, told me when I was a little kid, 'You're dumb, you're ugly, you're stupid, and everybody hates you.'" You may have forgotten that your big brother was the one that told you all that. But 20 years later, you have this belief, "I'm dumb, I'm ugly, I'm stupid, and everybody hates me." Where'd that come from? It came from embedding a subconscious belief that may not even be valid. So the first thing that you have to do is to release those subconscious beliefs. Sometimes we need help with that. Sometimes we can talk to somebody. Sometimes we can go to prayer, whatever it takes. But if you can release those beliefs that you may not even remember, you may not even remember that somebody said you're going to be poor your entire life. Okay, release those first. And then it's a little like planting a garden. Before you plant the garden, you have to till the soil. You have to pull out the old tree roots. You have to get rid of, the rocks and the other things that you don't need. You got to create a little chaos. You got to release things. And then you put in what you want to grow. So just imagine the first thing you do is getting rid of things that you don't need. Those beliefs that maybe should never have served you. Those beliefs that you weren't good enough. And then, once you feel like you've gotten to a certain point, then you create the affirmation. And the affirmation has to have 3 things to be really effective. It has to be positive. Well, that makes sense. I am healthy, not I am not sick. It has to be present tense. You can't think someday I'll be healthy. You have to know that if you're going to believe it, it starts now. Positive, present tense. The most important thing is you have to have passion. You have to really want it. If for some reason you don't really have your heart into it, it's like, I'm supposed to say this because I'm supposed to be healthy, but you don't want to give up the habits that you have. I'm supposed to be, kinder to people, but there's somebody you really want to get back at. You're not going to be able to have the energy to really put into positive, present tense, and passionate. If you're able to do that and you're able to release the things that no longer serve you, then you create the positive path. Then you create the affirmation that's effective. Really important to put in a little bit of work to release the sabotaging, because we all do that. We all have these self-sabotaging beliefs that for whatever reason, whatever I do, I'm not going to be good enough. Wouldn't it be nice to get rid of those? Probably something that everybody has an awareness of. You get up in the morning and you assume, it's going to be a lousy day. All day long, you find things to validate that it's going to be a lousy day. I missed that light. I wish I had gotten that light. It changed just before I got, why didn't I get that raise? I knew I was supposed to. And every day you validate something that is false. So by the time you go to bed, you can confirm, boy, it was a lousy day. I knew I was right. It's because you're looking for things to validate that false belief. Yeah. I don't think people understand how powerful, the power of an affirmation is. There's different ways of looking at it. The affirmation is what you want, and in the present moment. An intention is something that is goal-oriented. Someday, it's okay to say that. But don't say anything that comes off as an expectation. And I want it to look like this, and I want it to happen just like this, and I know better than anybody else, so this is what I want. That's a really bad idea, because you may get it. And on the other side, it's like, if you'd only waited a little bit longer, you would have had something that was even better. So try to avoid expectations. Don't try to give the impression that you know exactly what you want and what you need. You don't. None of us do. Sometimes I like to think that, we are swimming in the pool, but the lifeguard has a much better view of everything going on. Let the lifeguard be in charge. We have people all the time who come in to see us who say, I just want to find my purpose. I just want to find out, what am I supposed to be doing? It feels like I'm supposed to be doing something big. What is it? Help me figure out what it is. So somebody once asked the Dalai Lama, what's the purpose of life? And he answered, to be happy. I think we make it far more difficult than it needs to be. I think that the purpose of life is to feel like you are doing things that make you happy, doing things that help other people, and not necessarily to feel like you have to climb to the top of the mountain. Sometimes being the best mom you could possibly be is the best thing that you could do for your life and other lives. To be a teacher, to being the best barista at Starbucks because you're helping people having a moment of happiness. I don't think that finding happiness means that you need to be in front of a crowd of people in an auditorium. I think it's the everyday things that we do that try to help other people as well as ourselves. It's perfectly okay to say, you know what? I'm not going to empty the dishwasher right now. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to feed the birds. I'm going to take 5 minutes just to sit and be quiet. I think we spend so much time worrying about how other people would perceive us. What do you mean? You were just sitting? Don't you know how much work you have to do? What I need to do right now is just to have another cup of tea, watch the birds, and just be quiet. First of all, I don't worry that much about what other people think because I don't really care what other people think, and they probably don't care what I think about them. All I really care about is, am I the best person I can possibly be? And if I need to work on myself, help me. Help me figure out what is it that I need to do to be better. So people who come in wanting to know, what is my mission in life? Your mission in life is to enjoy being human. You came down here to be human. You wanted to know what it was like to be human. What are you doing? I think that people do themselves a disservice by downplaying the number of things that they do that are right. We have a tendency to only see the things that are considered flaws, and that's so limiting. That's so self-defeating. Because when you start talking about who you are, and we often talk about all the things that you wish you could do better, you wish you could do differently, and when we talk about who are you, it's really easy to come up with all the things that you don't like about yourself. But the reality is the things that you do that are really exceptional actually far exceed the list of things that maybe there are some challenges. What you think, you do become. So how do we change the way people see themselves? They see where they put their energy, where they put their thoughts and their emotions. That's the challenge. That's a challenge for those of us in our field, but it's also the challenge for us as a people. How do we change our thinking? How do we realign to something that feels like perhaps it's just a higher value, a higher mission? It benefits us as individuals and certainly benefits our culture. I'm having really weird things happen. I mean, it's the beginning, you hear like little things, you see little things. Now they're like getting more and more intense. So one of the reasons why Avratar told me that I was going to write this book, and I finally asked him, why? Why me? Why did you pick me to do this? He said, because you know fear. And you know how to tell people, I know fear, and I know this is not something to be afraid of. And I've had a lot of really, really, really bad things. And I'm not saying I'm through all of it. I mean, there's stuff that's going to scar you for more than one lifetime. But I'm trying really hard to work through it. I don't like doing exorcisms. They're not my favorite thing. That's scary stuff. And I've seen stuff that I wish I could get out of my mind. But it's real. And somebody has to help these people. And I don't know anybody else that really does that. So, yeah, I do know fear. And I also know that you got to work your way through the fear. So that's one thing I do agree with what you were saying earlier. If you don't control your fear will control you. And I know it can come off perhaps as arrogance, but if you do not have total mastery of your fear, you will collapse. You know, what I think is kind of interesting is that humans don't realize how truly powerful they are. I think that there's so much that tries to keep us in a box, that tries to keep us controlled, that doesn't really appreciate the fact that there is no box. We have the ability to do so much more, but fear keeps us controlled. And if you look around, no matter where you are, every single part of our life is being controlled. And so if you are living in fear, it is easier to control you. So the people who are fearless are the ones that are really living their best life. They don't have anything to worry about because they're doing what they want to do. They don't care if somebody else judges them. Okay, whatever, you do you. And they have the ability to be able to create the path that they want. I think we should all do that. I think there's a lesson in that if you can create a path that is right for you, that's the definition of finding peace.